Well, I have a reference today to Mutiny on the Bounty. And I just thought I'd start out by showing you a couple things that I've collected. I don't have a big collection of South Sea things, but sometimes I come across something, especially if it's really cheap and the people don't know what they're selling. Okay, if you know anything about the Bounty, it was an English ship. It was being sent on a mission involving breadfruit trees, and they ended up going to Tahiti. And in Tahiti, some of the men on the ship didn't want to leave. They wanted to stay there because there were the women there that were the free love women. And there was, they were getting good food. They were laying around. So Captain Bligh had to insist that they leave. A few days out, some of the crew decided to mutiny. They were led by Mr. Christian, who was the second in charge under Captain Bligh. And the men wanted to go back to Tahiti. Some of the crew were loyal to the captain. Those men were put out in a big lifeboat, a big wooden lifeboat, because remember this is the 1700s, with the captain, and set adrift in the ocean. Now this is in the South Pacific. The rest of the men went back to Tahiti, gathered up some of the women and a few men as well, and set off in the ship that was called the Bounty, because if they got caught, they were going to be hung. They were going to be hanged by the British government for being mutineers. So they traveled the South Pacific and they found an island that was sort of in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't even listed on the maps. They settled there, and they were not discovered there for many years. So it was these Bounty mutineers, some Tahitian women, and a few Tahitian men. And you can imagine the inbreeding that went on in that society. Well, this is a fish that's a flying fish, and this was carved by a man named Thomas Christian, who was born in 1935. And this man, Thomas Christian, was the great-great-great-grandson of Fletcher Christian, who was, the first mate on the Bounty. I got this for free, if you can believe it. Look at this. It's got carved teeth. I got it for free from a lady, from a antique dealer, because this was broken. This fin had been broken off and glued back, and I said, "Oh, this is broken. Could you give me like a $5 discount on it?" And she says, "Oh, just you can have it." she didn't think it was worth anything because it was broken. She didn't know that this was carved, even though there is a name on it. Sometimes the names are right behind the fin here. I don't know if I can get a view of that. It's stamped. Get a closer view of that. It's stamped Thomas Christian, Pitcairn Island. So this was a descendant of Fletcher Christian who carved this. I believe this man is now deceased as well, and I don't think they do any more carvings like this on Pitcairn Island. Pitcairn is so remote that they based their, I'm going to say there wasn't really tourism in the, 1940s, 50s. Very few ships stopped there. But when they did stop, the people that were the descendants of this bounty mutiny, they would come out in a boat and bring carvings and things like this, sometimes to sell. I'm going to show you one other one that I got. Now this one I got for free. And I'm going to show you one I paid a little bit of money for, not much, about $30. Once again, the dealer didn't know what they had. And here's a carved turtle. This is also from Pitcairn Island. The dealer that I bought it from didn't know what it was. It was just being sold as a carved wooden turtle. And I think I paid like $25 or $30 for it. But it does have a signature on it. You see here. This was Ben Christian. And it says Ben Christian, Pitcairn Island. Now, a lot of times the flying fish were the items that were carved. Sometimes there were vases that were shaped like hands that were carved. But there aren't too many turtles, so I was really happy to get this guy. Ben Christian was born in 1921, and he is also deceased now. And he also was a direct descendant of Fletcher Christian of the Bounty Mutiny. This is a rare piece because Ben mostly carved fish. So I was really thrilled to get this. I've had these pieces a lot of years because I look for things that are South Seas. There was an issue with some of the descendants pretty recently. They were accused of child rape and child molestation by some of the women. That island is basically everyone's related because they all came from these original mutineers and the Tahitian women and the few Tahitian men that were part of the mutiny crew or the group that went and found Pitcairn Island. In Tahiti, the girls were already of marriageable age when they were about 12 or 13 years old. So this tradition was carried on Pitcairn Island. And of course, here you have these, they're basically children that are either married off or are what we call sexually abused. Some of the girls didn't see it that way, some of the women, and some of them did. So there was I think there were some arrests made, and I'm talking about, within the last 30 years that this was going on. You can look up the articles about it. But they basically thought that Pitcairn Island was full of child predators, and I guess basically you'd say it was. Whether they were used to that kind of lifestyle or not was up to the courts to judge. But anyway, here's two pieces from Pitcairn Island, and I say it just ties in with a little sign that I made out of scrap wood, which I'm going to be showing you in this video. Here's more of what I'm talking about. I had a crate. It was out in the garage, and my son was putting oil canisters into it with used motor oil so he could take it to recycling. But the oil was seeping out of the canisters a little bit into the wood, or it was spilling over. So I just salvaged what was good about the wood, and these pieces were just a few pieces left. Cut them up, and here's what I did with these. This is the story of my life, but anyway, there's a little knot hole here. I thought it looks like the letter O. I saw this sign on someone else's Tiki bar, and I thought it was really funny. I'm sure there's signs out there you can buy, but I thought, hey, why not make one? It reminds me of Mutiny on the Bounty. So I took a Dremel tool and I did some incising here, and it made it say the floggings will continue until morale improves. Captain Bligh, he wasn't that bad. You read the real history about the Bounty, it's kind of funny. In the movies, they make him out to be such a tyrant, but really, a lot of the guys said he wasn't that bad. It's just that some of the guys, they didn't want to leave Tahiti because of the women there. You know, they had the free love society. You know, the guys were laying around, the women were bringing them food, and they were having a lot of fun, and they didn't want to leave. So he had that problem, but sometimes I feel this is the story of my life, and I'm going to get these attached with a little glue and some tiny nails, and put something on the back and hang it up in the room. By the time we're done, all this wood should pretty much be used up. This is a bunch of wood that's going to be used for the bar. There's all different kinds. We did have to buy 4 2x4s, but the rest of it is all different kinds of scrap wood. A lot of it's from the pallets. Well, we just finished putting in the floor in the family room here. It hadn't had a floor in it. It's been sitting with plywood for like 3 years. And I've got some scraps left over from the last box. And I'm hoping they're going to be enough to use for the facing of the bar. Okay, so I'm laying it out. This is what I've come up with. It's hard to see the whole thing. But I got the engineered hardwood here left over from our redoing the family room here. These 4 pieces are left over from what's going to be the top of the bar. And these bamboo pieces, which can be cut in half, and I'll have enough. So what I've done is this. Just kind of staggering them and using the bamboo. Over here, the bamboo, I got to cut those down. Should be enough to do that side as well. And, you know, if I lived somewhere where they grew bamboo, you could get it probably pretty cheaply just going local. But we're nowhere near where they grow bamboo. I'm not in California or Florida. So these 5 pieces of bamboo I'm incorporating into this. I would have liked to have done the whole thing in bamboo in a pattern, but I'm going to work with what I've got. I have some scraps of wood. I took the jigsaw and cut out some mid-century looking fish here, and I'm going to have that. What I need in the middle is a piece of wood that I can cut into. I'm going to put the name of the bar in the middle there. And let me go over to my scrap pile and see if I can find something that might work. Here's a bunch more scrap wood that's sitting around. Everything from old bedsteads to scrap pieces of plywood. So this is like some leaves from a really old table that's not around anymore. So I'm going to look and see what we got that maybe would work. Here's a piece that looks about... old. Oh, this was actually a shelf from the kitchen. I took it out because the cabinet had too many shelves to fit stuff in. Let me see how this works over there. Let's see if we can put it. It's got a line on that side. This I'm going to sand down. I'm going to have to sand. Look at that. That doesn't happen very often. Look at that. Oh my gosh. It's almost a perfect fit. How often does that happen? I think it's really close. It's really close. These edges here of the engineered flooring will have to be chopped off, those little ridges, because it's just going to be glued down and maybe put a few nails in. Look at that. Okay, first we have to build the skeleton of the bar with enough braces of the scrap wood so that I can nail and glue this on. And then once it's all put together, this piece will go in last. It might have to be slightly adjusted, but boy, it's a really close fit.